Hi, this is Zoe Cole, presenting on Images of the Divine on Art and Religion. So, without further ado, let's get started. So here we have statues in ancient Egypt. Here's an image of Horus, one of the sky gods, and this statue is from the Louvre Museum in Paris, and actually makes quite good shadow puppets. Any statue of the god could be a vessel for the god's soul, or Ka. As long as the opening of the mouth ritual was performed, and this ritual was also performed on mummies. So let me read from you from the Book of the Dead, the Papyrus of Sobekmos, as translated by Paul O'Rourke. My mouth is opened by Ptah. What was on my mouth was loosened for me by my city god. Thoth comes then, full and equipped with magic, and he loosened the things belonging to Seth that were on my mouth. The hands of Autumn warded them off and cast away what was on my mouth. My mouth is open. My mouth is split open by Ptah with the metal harpoon of his, with which he opened the mouth of the gods. Another common image of the divine in Egyptian ritual were these votive statues. So here we have a statue of Bastet, the cat goddess, and daughter of Ra. These statues were offered to the gods by worshippers in prayers and as thanks for what the gods had done for them. Moving on to ancient Greece. Cult statues were also a thing in this civilization and were also seen as vessels for the gods. So here we have Athena Parthenos, the sacred statue in the Parthenon on the Acropolis of Athens. Cult statues could be used in ritual, and this one in particular was used in the Panathenaea festival, which happened every 4 years. That statue was then given new clothes and jewelry, which were made by young girls who served in the temple. Though not all statues of the gods were divine. Athena Promachos was sculpted by Phidias, and here's a depiction of that statue and what it might have looked like from the video game Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I'd like to note that neither of these two statues exist in the world today. We have some copies and some images on coins, so these are both recreations that are done to the best of our knowledge, but the originals, being made of gold and ivory, have long been destroyed. Now, Athena Promachos, or Athena who goes before the army, was called not a daughter of Zeus, but of Phidias. So she wasn't divine in nature, but her creator was mortal. So this statue was seen as not a triumph of the divine, but a triumph of art and of man. Now we're going to go to early Christian art. Here's some examples. Okay, so Christianity was illegal in the Roman Empire. Believers communicated through symbols like these. So first we have the fish, also known as ichthys, which was an acronym for the name of Christ in Greek. So we have iota, chi, theta, upsilon, sigma. And then here we have the modern version of the fish symbol, so it's still used in modern Christianity. Next we have Christ the shepherd. There are many references to Christ as a shepherd in the Bible, willing to lay down his life for his sheep, reflecting at least symbolically, this story of Christ on the cross. This fresco is from the catacomb of Saints Peter and Marsilius. And then last we have Christ as Orpheus. Orpheus was a mythological figure from Greek stories, and he was said to have gone to the underworld and returned alive, which was something that no one could do. He was the only one who made it. So we have Orpheus's lyre here, which identifies a figure. So that sort of associates the two in the mind of these early Christians. As I said earlier, Christianity was illegal, so they couldn't outright paint images of Christ and label them as such. So they had to do it through illusion and code. This is from the catacombs of Domitilla, which is another Christian catacomb, because Christians could not bury their dead in the Roman cemeteries. Some say that early Christians gathered in these catacombs, and that's why we see so many symbols down there, but that's probably not very accurate. But there's some amazing art down there. Alright, let's move into medieval Europe. Alright, so most of Europe was illiterate, so the church used pictures to tell stories. Down here we have the Arena Chapel in Padua, Italy, which was decorated by the artist Giotto between the years 1305 and 1306. So first we have the expulsion of Joachim from the temple. He was the father of the Virgin Mary. And then here we have Joachim in the wilderness. These images are just two out of a very long series. There's many more if you'd like to look them up. And they tell the story of what happened before the Virgin Mary's birth. It's interesting, these are meant to be read by a comic, so you've got Joachim in these robes you see in both images, and the halo, so he's easily identified, which reminds me of bright-colored comic book characters, which are easy to pick out among a crowd. And another thing noteworthy is the simplified architecture. This isn't supposed to be representation of what the temple looks like, but it's got the features that one would recognize. You could tell that there's the teacher here, and Christians would have heard this story, but this would serve as like something to reinforce that idea. Also from medieval Europe, we have the Vladimir Madonna. Some images of Christ, the Virgin, or saints hold power and work miracles, such as healing the sick or protecting the faithful. These are known as icons. So the Vladimir Madonna is a famous Russian example, which is thought to be a sort of palladium, a protector of the nation, and it has featured in coronations and other rituals. Okay, so now we get to iconoclasm, which is not a favored topic of art historians. Iconoclasm is the destruction of images for religious and political reasons. So the most famous of these iconoclasms is part of the Reformation. The use of images in Catholicism was seen by these Protestants as idolatry, or putting other things before God, like they were worshiping the image instead of actually worshiping Christ. Protestants wanted a purer form of Christianity without any distractions from God. So they wanted like clean, bright, white churches that brought the mind upwards to the divine and away from earth, not all these lavishly decorated frescoes and paintings and mosaics. Just, they wanted simple. Another iconoclastic happening were the fact that Roman statues were destroyed for the same reason when the church came to power. Roman emperors were deified after death and venerated, this was, of course, idolatry as prohibited by the First Commandment. So these statues, many of them which were bronze, were melted down. Some of them, however, were allowed to stay. Images of Constantine, who was the emperor who legalized Christianity, were protected and kept. Fortunately, many statues of other emperors were misidentified as Constantine. I can think of notable examples of Hadrian and Marcus Aurelius, so those were allowed to stay. Another example are the ancient Mesopotamian monuments that have been destroyed in the Middle East. There have been cases of the Islamic State destroying, blowing up some of these monuments, but there have also been damage to them done by American forces, such as the marks from strafing from U.S. fighter jets on these ziggurat of Ur, that happened during the Gulf War. And all of this makes the art historian here very, very sad. Okay, on to Judaism. Now, images of humans and 3D sculptures are prohibited in synagogues because, again, first commandment, thou shalt have no other gods before me. It was seen as idolatry. But that's not to say that synagogues aren't beautiful in the same way that so many churches are. Here we have the dome in the Great Synagogue of Rome. It's the distinctive square dome that really sets it apart from every other building on the Roman skyline. And the interior is decorated with mosaic of these in this rainbow pattern, which is a reminder of God's promise to Noah after the flood. And then here we have the stained glass window in the Eldridge Street Synagogue in New York City. Now this is a beautiful example of stained glass. The Star of David in the center is combined with the 5-pointed stars that you can see around it, which says that this building is not just a Jewish monument, but an American monument as well. Another cool thing about this window is instead of using lead to join the pieces of glass together, silicone was used, which allows so much more light to come through, just lighting up the window. And it was one of the first of using this technique, and it was certainly the first window using this technique of this scale. I don't know, this probably doesn't depict how huge that window is. I am dying to see it in person. And now we're at Islam. So, like Judaism, images of sentient beings are prohibited in Islam. So you won't see any images of the Prophet Muhammad. If you do see him, that he will have his face covered by a piece of cloth or something. But those are kind of still on shaky grounds with the ideas of Islam. So what you'll often see in Islamic architecture is this beautiful Arabic calligraphy of passages from the Quran, shown here from the dome and the roundels of the Hagia Sophia. Something interesting is that the Hagia Sophia has, just as of July 10th, 2020, been reconverted to a mosque. It was originally a Christian church built under the Byzantine Empire. Then under the Ottomans became a mosque, and for the past 80 years it's been a museum. Conservative Muslims have been wanting to convert it back to a mosque, and the idea has been around for a little while, but now it has been officially announced that it will be converted back to a working mosque. Now, this isn't to say that they're going to get rid of all the Christian art that is still existing in the building. There are some mosaics that are still on display there, and those will be preserved. And it'll be much like the Notre Dame or other famous churches or the Vatican, where it is a working mosque, but visitors will be permitted to come in and admire the beautiful art that is in the building. Another symbol we have here is the hand of Fatima. Fatima was the daughter of Muhammad, so here we see her henna'd hand, which is a symbol that wards off the evil eye. Now this symbol is not exclusive to Islam, but it has been sort of adopted by Muslims. So images are a way to make what you can't see with your eyes visible. Many artists talk about art not only capturing what your eye can see, but also the soul of the subject. And that is a major goal in many religions, to help communicate these ideas to the followers of it. I wish I could have covered more religions, but this video is already long enough. Thanks for watching.